past 4 years, because of the volatility in the crude oil market, we have not had any accretion to the excess crude account. So what we have had has been gradually used up for different purposes, and it's always used in consultation with the National Economic Council, that is the governors, because this is a federation account. The last approval that was given by the National Economic Council was $1 billion to enhance security. We have been utilizing that. The last tranche of that has been finally released because the deployment to the security agencies are based on the contracts that they executed, and it's been used strictly for that security purposes. So it's been, what the utilization in the account is with the full knowledge of the governor.
From it. Nigerian political class has systematically plundered Nigeria by, one, denying the future what belongs to them. We have turned to that saving anytime it suits us. We set up a sovereign wealth fund, give it a paltry amount of money. Go and look at our peers, how much they put in sovereign wealth funds. In the way that we have spent money, we have even made creating wealth more difficult. An economy that's not growing, that can't draw on this for rainy days, cannot draw on it for the future of our children who have as much of a right to this. In my view, and I've said this publicly, it is irresponsible the way that we manage the Nigerian economy. Because we ruined the refineries with the mismanagement of the system. And so it's double whammy, double whammy. So how are we saying that there were no accruals because of volatility that's been on the negative side when crude oil prices have been up, and that's the excuse for why petrol prices are up? What are we talking about? The conditions have been rosier these last few years than they were at several points in the past of our country. Just look, the first thing you do when you get into, or you begin to cite crisis, is you begin to manage your consumption. Show me how the National Assembly has saved on its budget in the last 3 years as we cited things getting worse. Show me how the presidency has saved on its budget. Show me. We've been consuming like, there was no tomorrow. And that's why we are in the trouble that we are in. In the last 6-7 years, we began to play games. We began to have multiple exchange rates. It was inevitable to anybody who understands institutions and economic performance that what is happening today would happen. So it has happened. It was predicted, it was predictable, it has happened. So the question is, how do we fix it? It won't be a one-day fix. We've got to bring back confidence that we believe in markets and that these markets will work. What are the ways we do it? First of all, we have to ramp up production. We have to reduce consumption of non-essentials. And so we've got to begin to do some austerity. And government is not just, don't waste this money that does not exist. How do we stimulate people to produce? How do we begin to export? In an economy that is exporting, devaluation is not necessarily the end of the world. It might actually be an incentive. I keep reminding people that in my time, the Japanese yen was several hundred to $1. And they built an export economy, and as they were, because their exchange rate was the way it was, their exports were considered cheaper abroad, and they continued to grow their export portfolio. And then, of course, their exchange rate was getting stronger and stronger. When the yen crossed 200, I still remember very clearly, became 198. There was almost a morning in Japan that the exchange rate was getting too strong. It would negatively affect their export. So the real issue here is that we are not producing, we are not exporting, and so we are hit very badly by the fact that we are so import dependent, and the prices of those imports are going to go crazy, especially now that we are even so dependent on importation of Food. We should have been going for a clear national security thing with food security. We didn't. We're vulnerable because we're importing everything, what we eat, in a country that should be exporting food.